Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, a Thursday edition of Birds 365 as we now prepare for Week 4 for the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Johnny Mac, right around the corner, my man. I mean, this week is flying. Every week is flying by when you get into the Philadelphia Eagles season. Week 4 right around the corner. How you feeling on this Thursday morning, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, not flying by for me. Those Wednesdays are tough on Sunday games for it's big practice day, obviously, and the Eagles scaled back to a walkthrough, but just the time, the locker room, the practice, it's a long day. But anyway, it moves quickly as you get to the season, and I think it's a solid start for the Eagles. 2-1 ended. Style points probably aren't there. We talked about should be 3-0, but then again, if you think about the New Orleans game the other way, maybe 2-1 is right. So Keystone Cops type thing from the Saints helps out. So
it all balances out. And I do think, we talked a little bit about the adversity earlier in the week. I know they haven't had any real now they do with the injuries, but you could argue losing A.J. Brown early, in week coming into
that's adversity.
That's some adversity. That's your best player that you built your offense around the whole summer. So I think where we're sitting right now with this team, and they showed some potential on defense, I think they're in a good spot, as they prepare to take on the Bucs going into the bye week.
This game is a tough spot. I've kind of intimated that during the week. I don't think Tampa Bay coming in off a really, really poor performance, playing at home, obviously, in the Eagles' second consecutive road game. It shapes up as a difficult spot for me, but, we'll see how the injuries shake out. They're going to have to play differently if AJ and Devontae are not available. If one's available, even you have to shift a little bit, but at least you can pretty much play your offense, and then it becomes a concern if they're both off the field at the same time, which is difficult. That's you're not going to replace A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You can't replace A.J. Brown. We talk about it all the time, and Jahan Dotson and Johnny Wilson and Paris Campbell. Then it becomes a Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert game almost by necessity. And then we talked to Saquon yesterday. The touches are starting to pile up to the point where, they're going to have to rethink that now you're trying to win the game. You got to get through this game as you get to the bye week. So I think if there's no AJ and Devontae, it's going to be all Saquon all the time. But coming out, they're really going to have to reassess that and maybe even be a little bit more disciplined to help them get through the season at a high level. Because teams around the league do this all the time. You have a top running back, and maybe every 4 series you rotate in the backup just to take some of the workload off the starter. Of course, you don't want to do that late in the game, late in the close game. So you got to be really disciplined earlier in the game. Say, you know what? This is a Kenny Gainwell series. People are going to be pissed off, but you got to do it. It's not going and getting the 414 touches. You already said yesterday, everybody's banged up in week 3.
Yeah.
It's not.
And Saquon's taking some hard hits as well. I know he's not banged up, for the injury report, but he's taking a couple big. I remember that one. I forget what game that was. He got hit hard, and people were like, "Uh-oh, that might have been game 1. Did he just get hurt?" So,
he did leave. He did. That was the one time you saw Kenny, and people were questioning it. Like, why is Kenny Gainwell in the game? Well, at the time, it was because he got banged up at the end of the first half. Is when you were talking, and that was the reason, because he was banged up. But what I'm saying is, you're going to hear it, and maybe it's Will Shipley as well. But you got to do it. I don't know other way to, and that's where the discipline comes in, because obviously you want Saquon out there, but again, do you want him out there for 6, 7, 8 games, or do you want him out there for 17 in the playoffs? Right now, Kenny Gainwell's got 3 attempts, 3 rushing attempts. Will Shipley's at 0. Kenny Gainwell's got 3 receptions. Will Shipley doesn't have a reception yet. Those are your backups. That's the reason I'm saying that. Saquon's got 63 touches on the ground, and he's got 10 more receiving. Yeah, 10 more. So he's at 24, 25 touches a game. That, you expand that out, that's over 400 touches for the entire season.
Yeah.
That's going to be difficult to continue from his standpoint. And I'm trying to pull up the quote.
Yeah, I don't think you want that as a fan either. I mean, you want this
Well,
guy,
you shouldn't.
you
but
want
that's
him
the
playing
dichotomy.
good football late in the season, especially going into that playoff. You don't want 425 touches.
Well, that's the thing. But everybody gets excited about stats, and I was leading the league in rushing. That's awesome. Like, who cares? Who
Yeah, right.
cares? You want a rushing champion, or you want a Super Bowl champion?
It's so true. It's so true.
It's
And it's clear, he's proven, I think, already how much he could help us in those games, to get to a Super Bowl championship. When you talk about the impact he's had, the home run plays that he's had, you want that guy healthy. So we're going to see what they end up doing. I think that's a good point by you. Everybody's talking about the receivers are out. Well, we got to balance Saquon as well. So, John, you said you were down there all day yesterday, obviously, for, the walkthrough the Eagles had. What were your takeaways from yesterday?
I found it. Let me just throw this in there before
Yeah.
we turn the page there. So this is Saquon yesterday. My body still feels pretty good because we asked him about the touches, but also having that mindset that it's football. Everybody's sore, everybody's hurting, and it's only going to get worse. You're not going to be 100% from the second you come in here for camp. That 100% is over. Whether you have 25 touches, you play 70 snaps, or you play 5. It's, I think people say, oh, he's playing, he's fine. It doesn't work that way. Everybody's banged up. Everybody's and it's too much. They got to be more disciplined. And this is probably not the week they can be disciplined because of the injuries, but coming out of the bye, they got to be more disciplined as a coaching staff.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Eagles were down. You were down there yesterday, John, for the Eagles walkthrough. Devontae Smith was not out there. A.J. Brown was not out there. I know we haven't learned more specifically on what's going on with them, but just your early indication on if you think those guys might play this week. Everybody's obviously waiting to see that. That's a big thing. And, we haven't learned anything specifically on the injuries, but any indication from you on whether those guys might play right now?
Well, the only positive of those is Lane showed up to watch and did a little bit of stretching.
Yeah.
And that would indicate that maybe he's ahead of Devontae Smith in the concussion protocol, which would surprise me. As I said, it's a guessing game. I know people get frustrated. I know I get the question every day, what are they going to play or are they not going to play? It's out of the Eagles' hands, the concussion protocol. They have to get through it. It's an NFL policy, not a team policy. There's no consistency to it because there's no consistency to concussions. What grade is the concussion? What's the player's history with a concussion? How is he feeling the day after? What's their baseline? Where's it start at? Only neurologists know, who have seen the baseline and where they are,
right,
would know if they have a chance. And the coaches, and they're not allowed to talk about concussions. Not that Nick would if he could, but in this particular instance, he can't. That's part of the policy as well, because of so much, white noise with concussions, and obviously there's a PR aspect to it as well. And the league has set it up that way. So, yeah, I mean, you just got to wait. You got to be patient. You got to wait and see. But the history is, since they made it a little bit more difficult a few years ago to pass the concussion protocol. Generally, it's tougher to get through it in 1 week than it used to be. Now, even that, quarterbacks seem to get through it a little bit quicker. So there's a lot of, you know, there's the league isn't, it's not all altruism when it comes to protecting players from concussion. You know, star quarterbacks seem to be able to get through it a little bit quicker if they're
Right.
feeling better.
Yeah. There's some skullduggery going on with
Yeah,
the
I'm just saying it is what it is, and we're talking about non-quarterbacks. So, wait and see approach on them. The good news, Mekhi Becton, I would say, had confirmed to us he tore a ligament in his left ring finger, so he had no basically foundation on that finger. It was just flapping around. That's why he couldn't get back in the game. But he does expect to play some kind of wrap or cast, but he does expect to play and be back out there.
I'll tell you what is a curious case, because I understand the concussions. We're playing a different game when you talk about concussions, as John just explained. But the AJ Brown is starting to pique my interest in terms of, when it first happened, it was tightness. Now he's missed 2 games and he hasn't practiced here through Wednesday. Today is obviously Thursday. Have you heard anything more about the AJ Brown hamstring injury? As any inside sources have given you anything you can share with us? Do you know anything more about that? I mean, this is turning into, it's not hamstring tightness. I mean, there's obviously something going on.
No, he's got a hamstring strain. Yeah, I wouldn't get caught up into that. That was just Nick describing it when the original injury happened. The fact that he's missed 2 games already indicates it's a hamstring strain, and then it becomes levels to that. But I do think the schedule plays into it as well. Like if the Eagles didn't have their bye week until week 12 or week 13, yeah, I think it would be a different approach. I think they're trying to get through to the bye week, and trying to play it cautious from that standpoint. So I think that's what it's about. I think the schedule, they prefer to wait until after the bye week. Can they, if Devontae Smith can't play? Well, sure you can. They have plenty of people to line up. But the point is, can you play effectively? Can you play good enough to win football? A football game, and their thought process, the fact that he's not out there at least limited in a walkthrough, does not say positive news. And now they're going to be out on the practice field for a real practice today, and it's a veteran player, as you saw last week with CJ Gardner-Johnson. He missed 2 practices he played in the game, so it's not like for a younger player, rookie player, even first year play, not with a guy with a less experience. It's always, all right, he's not practicing, he's not playing. With AJ, yeah, I mean, he could play, but with that type of injury, my thought is that they would like to get him ramped up during the week, test it out a little bit. So I don't think it's positive, but I don't think it's overly concerning either. I think you see the obvious blinking lights, bye week, but that's the only thing about being cautious and getting. He'll definitely be back after the bye week. There's no concern about that.
Okay, so good stuff there. AJ might miss the John. That's a good point. You talk about a hamstring. Obviously, that's one of those things you'd want to work back in, John. When we talk about it, let's just play a game for a second and assume that AJ and Devontae are not going to be on the football field this week for the Eagles. What do you see the lineup looking like for the wide receivers? I know the names, but who's going to line up where, and how do you think that would play out in the absence of those key receivers?
Jahan Dotson would be the de facto wide receiver 1, if you want to call it that. Paris Campbell would likely be elevated from the practice squad and be the Devontae Smith role. And then you could really argue that Britton Covey being out is, at least from an effectiveness standpoint, is been their 3rd receiver. But he's not obviously going to play either. So Johnny Wilson would be the third guy who is more of a situational player at this point. And you have to ramp it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's not good.
Who do you think would run in the slot there, or do you think they would do a lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight end sets? Like, what would you? How do you think they would game plan?
Oh, I
those,
think they'll
those
play
two
a
guys?
ton of 12 personnel, number one. Yeah. But for as far as receiver, the one good thing is Jahan Dotson can play inside, outside.
Yeah.
Paris Campbell can play inside, outside. So you do have some flexibility at least to move guys between X and Z and flex. Can they do it effectively? It's one like anybody can line up anywhere. Anybody can line up anywhere.
Right. How
and they
effective
do
they
it.
are,
Can they do it effectively?
Right.
That's what it's about. But those two particular players are used to playing inside and outside. So
John, I'm smelling a Johnny Wilson day, baby. I'm smelling a Johnny Wilson. Welcome to the league moment, Johnny Mac.
Well, there might be you never know. I mean, you get some opportunities. 50-50 ball, he might catch a big time. I would not expect consistency from Johnny Wilson. Maybe you should go talk to Mike Evans. That should be who he's talking to.
Yeah.
Before the game, after the game, try to track him down. But
yeah, we had former Buck on Ian Beckles earlier in the week on the National Football Show. He was great, by the way. I think he's on WDAE down there in Tampa, which is like their WIP down in Tampa. And he talked about Mike Evans. He's like, we've all just been waiting for Mike Evans to decline one of these years, and he just never declines. He just continues to show up and be the dominant player that he is. So he's a good. Mike Evans is obviously a great player for them.
Yeah, difficult matchup for everybody.
Yeah.
6'5". He just there's no cornerback in the league that can match up with him from a physical standpoint. Very similar to Johnny Wilson, and Johnny's a little bit bigger, but I probably shouldn't have brought that up. Obviously,
not quite the doesn't quite have the pedigree that Mike Evans.
Skill standpoint, not the same. But Mike Evans is been one of the more underrated players in the NFL for the longest time. He came in the league in 2014. As a first-round pick, obviously, 7th overall. So he was a top 10 pick. So a lot was expected of him. But for whatever reason, Tampa, not the largest market in the world, obviously a lot of high profile when Brady was there. But he's never mentioned in the guy. You know the names. You always hear Jefferson and Hill. And I'm not saying he's there now, but he came in the league 2014. He's never not had 1,000-yard season.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, how many years is that? 14, 52, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 years. This will be the 11th. He's had 10 or more touchdowns 5 times. Just, he's a pain to deal with. And Vic Fangio, his history with Mike Evans, you can tell the respect that he has for him. So I think to people in football, it's well known, but he does things in Honest NFL. The Honest NFL, follow him. Used to work for the Eagles back in the day. He had mentioned he's a big. He likes Vic's defense, studies Vic's defense a lot, and he's noticed how he game plans for Mike Evans. And he mentioned that he probably treats him with more respect than just about any other receiver in the NFL. He's really good.
Yeah, I'm gonna close up this segment here on the update on the injuries. I want to talk about Lane Johnson, but while we're doing that, we just talked about Mike Evans, and Darius Slade did get banged up. I know he was a full participant in practice yesterday, so I think he's gonna play and everything. It doesn't look right. He's gonna play this weekend. It's not. He's not looking like he'll be out. Yeah, but I wonder if look, he's on the other side of 30.
Slade's got 9 lives, by the way. That looked bad. I thought, oof. He's got 9 lives. He's very durable.
Saw Jimmy Kemsky posted up the end zone view of that too on the All-22, which I did see, but that was a nasty play by Trevor Penning, man.
It was, man. Yeah, it was. That's old school dirty NFL offensive line play.
Yes, it is.
Um, yeah, that was the dirt. That's why everybody was focused on Devontae because of the violence of the hit. I said people hate me for it. I mean, to me, the officials should have came in and blew it all up, blew the play dead way quicker. But as far as the
Yeah.
hit, it's not an illegal hit.
Yeah, the hit from the defensive lineman, you're correct about. I think what people are pissed about on Devontae, because one of our viewers
Yeah,
tagged me
the
in
other
something
guy
yesterday.
said,
Yeah, the other
spit
dude.
it
I mean,
on.
and Devontae's helmet was off at that point, and you can't really see it from the video, but it looks like the crown of 98's helmet goes right into Devontae Smith's chin, which
Yeah,
is
he'll
obviously,
get fined. But I
yeah, I think he got
in the
fined
moment, at
4,600. He
least
got fined, John.
in the moment, people were saying the hit was illegal. It's not. I hope they realize that, but it's the last thing we want is this league scaling back even more with legal hits, but or at least should. Um, but the penning play, I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Blocking a guy that far out of bounds.
Yeah, I mean, he knocked one of his own coaches down.
Yeah. So, that to me was, the guy coming in afterwards, he had bigger deal than, um, but I don't think he spit on him. There's no evidence of that, but, a lot of people get upset.
Yeah, he got a $4,600 fine was the update. I want to thank everybody, by the way, for being here this morning. One last thing on the injury report. We're going to get to our break, and then we're going to dive into the preview of this game. We have no guests today. I want to let everybody know that. So if you do want to get some questions in, all super chats will be taken, and we'll also take some other questions from our viewers later on in hour number 2. I do want to talk about Brandon Graham later. We're going to talk about Jalen Hurts versus Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles has kind of had Jalen's number in a way. And then I want to ask John a little bit about the new offensive coordinator in Tampa, who's done a good job, comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. So we'll do all that after the break. Thanks, everybody, for being here. John, last point on the injury. Lane Johnson, I know you said he was out there yesterday. Again, we don't know if he's going to play. We have no update yet on whether he's going to play. But I will say this. Lane Johnson, when he's on the field, the Eagles are 91-54. When they are not with that, when they are without Lane Johnson, they are 14-22. He is obviously one of the most important pieces on the football team, one of the best players on that offensive line for a long time now. Are the Eagles' offensive line equipped to lose Lane? How do you feel about that coming into this game if we just envision for a moment that Lane might not play?
Well, yeah, I mean, you just said the numbers. It's never good.
Yeah.
For many years, I say AJ Brown is the best football player. For a couple of years, it was Lane Johnson.
Yeah, before
and
AJ, it was Lane. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was Fletcher probably before that. But so same thing. Very difficult to lose a player like that. I think Brad Johnson did a nice job filling in game. The problem is, if Tampa Bay is preparing for Fred Johnson, and
Right.
From a preparation standpoint, it's about preparing for Lane Johnson, getting ready for Lane Johnson in case he's out there. But you're going to have that contingency. If he doesn't play, we're going to do this, and we're going to attack this, and then they're certainly going to put a big circle around Fred Johnson. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And Mekhi Becton's playing. Tyler Steen even played better, I would argue, from the standpoint of his ability to hold up in that particular game.
Yeah. Tyler Steen looked good.
Yeah,
Good
he
numbers.
did.
Yep.
But the same thing would have applied with Tyler if you get a chance to game plan. But Mekhi's going to play, so not as much. You're going to have at least one of them. And that's going to make it a little bit difficult. But the Bucs are banged up as well. Their injury report was much longer than the Eagles. So it's not just attrition for one team. They're pretty banged up themselves, and that's probably one of the more bigger concerns from their standpoint this week. So I'm trying to pull it up real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Yeah, they got
9,
a lot.
10,
I'm
11,
looking at it right
12,
now.
13, 14, 15, 16 players were listed on the injury report. Now, a lot of them were full practices, not a lot, most limited. The guys who didn't practice were Cameron Johnson, who's a wide receiver, but Antoine Winfield Jr. is in that category, and he might be their best player. Vita Vea is limited. I mentioned Clancy. He's obviously now they're more interior guys, but Logan Hall is a guy who plays. He's banged up. William Golston's a defensive lineman. He's banged up. So they're really banged up on the defensive front. So they might not be in a position to take advantage of it because of their injuries. So similar to last week, who handles attrition better? The Saints did not handle losing Eric McCoy well at all.
No, they did not.
The Eagles handled losing their entire right side much better than the Saints were able to do with one player. So, who handles that attrition better on a particular game day? But, you want Lane Johnson out there if possible, to say the least.
No doubt. It's Fred Johnson season, Johnny Mack. So hopefully the Eagles offensive line is able to be up to the
size of Fred Johnson's Crocs, by the way. My God. I've never seen Crocs that big.
What's he, like a size 20, 18,
I don't know.
17?
It's unbelievable, though. It's a big dude. Big dude.
That's pretty good little insight right there. Fred Johnson's got some big Crocs. Classic. All right, let's get to our commercial break. Before I do that, I want to thank my man, Johnny Mack. Prince upgrades his membership to become part of the JAKIB family. So, Prince, thank you, man, for the support of the channel. Appreciate that. Goes a long way. So thank you for doing that, my man. Appreciate everybody. And Jason A-Team did the same as well. So big shout out to Jason A-Team as well for doing that and supporting our channel. Thank you, guys. It does not go unnoticed. So thanks for all the support you guys have given. Great stuff in the chat, everybody. We got a good crowd in here this morning. Make sure you guys hit that like button. We're gonna get to our first commercial break, and then, as I mentioned before, we're gonna dive into this game. There's a lot of good storylines coming into this game. We just hit on the injuries, but Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, that's a good matchup. Todd Bowles versus Jalen Hurts is a good matchup. Todd Bowles has had Jalen's number a little bit at the start of his career. I believe Jalen is 1-3 versus Todd. So a lot of good storylines in the game. And then we're also going to talk about our man, Brandon Graham, who's feeling good, looking good out there. And he's wondering, maybe I will be back for another year. So we'll talk about all that coming up next on Birds 365. Hit that like button, everybody, and stay tuned. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.